It is Health Monday, and Jared Johnson joins us from Marble City Pharmacy in Sylacauga. And Jared, good morning to you, sir.
Good morning. Happy Monday.
Happy Monday to you, too. And it is Veterans Day 2018, and I know that's a special day for you as well and your family.
Veterans Day is a special day for us. Veterans Day means honoring those people that gave the ultimate sacrifice, some of them, and the people who make our freedom possible. My granddad was a veteran. My granddad fought in World War II.
Wow.
He was a Purple Heart recipient. I'll tell you an interesting story. My granddad decided, whether you agree with this decision or not, he decided that he wasn't going to kill anybody. The killing was wrong, even in war. And he made the decision that even in war, he wouldn't fire a gun. And so my granddad got shot in World War II, laid in the field for an entire day, finally got rescued, and then went on to live a full life. But you know, him and the men and women of his generation, those are people with real courage. Today, people think they have courage when they go on Twitter and blast somebody, and that's kind of sad because we kind of lost perspective of what real courage is. But those are the people who had it, and that's what Veterans Day is all about. So I give a personal thank you to all those men and women who fought in our military.
Yeah, and our Veterans Day parade, unfortunately, canceled because of heavy rain expected throughout the day here in the Coosa Valley area. And you were talking earlier, a number of Veterans Day parades already been canceled. They will be meeting up at the Veterans Hall off of Fort Williams today for lunch, and we'll be over there about 11 o'clock today. Today's a good day to have a sale on umbrellas, man.
Oh, we need an umbrella for sure. It's going to rain all day.
You know, pharmacies, though, you know, you got to be there when the client and your customer needs you. You
got to be there. I actually got a couple of calls on the emergency cell phone this weekend. People need medication when we weren't there, so we had to help those people out. And Veterans Day is a great day for our country, but we're going to be open. We're going to be there because the people need us.
Yeah, let's talk about osteoporosis this morning.
Osteoporosis, osteoporosis is a condition where your bones get weaker and weaker over time, and what happens is it makes it easier for your bones to break. A lot of people don't know this, but your bones are living tissue. You're constantly making new bone, and you're constantly breaking down old bone. And in your younger years, sometime in your 20s, that kind of peaks. You got the strongest bone density at that time. But as you get older, the rate which your bone is breaking down kind of outweighs the new bone that you're making. And so you get persons with this condition where their bones are weak, makes it much more likely for them to get fractures.
Mm-hmm. How common is this?
It's actually very common. I think 50-something million Americans is the latest statistic that I've heard. But basically over age 50, this is interesting, over age 50, 1 in 2 women will have a fracture from osteoporosis, and 1 in 4 men over age 50. So very, very common.
And I'm assuming that, you know, if you're 25 years old and you have a fall and a break, is not nearly as serious as it could be if you're 60, 65 years old and have a break.
Not nearly as serious for lots of reasons. First of all, it's a lot easier to have a break as you get older, especially if you have osteoporosis. But it's, as you said, it's much more difficult to heal the older you get, and it seems to be more susceptible to infections you might get in the hospital. So there's all kinds of other complications that kind of go along with it.
Now, I can't just look at myself and make the prognosis that I have osteoporosis. How do you figure that out?
You can't really diagnose that yourself, although there are some signs that you can tell before you get an actual diagnosis. Sometimes people begin to get hunched. A lot of people that you see whose backs are kind of hunched have had weakening of the spine, and a lot of times the spine fractures very easily. When a person has a fall, just a normal fall, something that you wouldn't expect to cause a fracture, a lot of times that's a good indicator. But there is an official diagnostic type test. The physicians will measure something called bone mineral density, and they'll give you something called a T-score. And basically a T-score is kind of on kind of on a plane like this. The worse your T-score is, it might be osteoporosis. There's another condition called osteopenia. It's basically a weakening of the bone, but not yet serious enough to be osteoporosis. So if you've heard that term, osteopenia, that's kind of a definition of that.
Is there particular parts of the body that's more susceptible to this?
Yeah, that's a good question. Actually, the wrist, the hip, and the spine are the most likely places for persons to get fractures. And you know this, the older you get, particularly hip fractures, the more serious they become, the more difficult they are to recover from those things. And so we have to take great caution for prevention of these.
You mentioned 1 out of 2 women. What about other groups of individuals? Who is most likely to have a problem with this?
Yeah, most likely to have a problem with osteoporosis are number 1 women. But actually among the races, white women and Asian women seem to be more susceptible even than other races. Though the main thing is being a woman for sure. And then you have persons who have a smaller frame. You know, if a person has a small frame throughout their entire life, they never built a strong bone mineral density even in their younger years. And so as they get older, they're much more likely to experience it than those persons with big frames.
Well, we can't prevent age, you know, a clock continues to run, but how can this be prevented, however?
Yeah, there's a number of things that can be done to prevent osteoporosis. In the category of exercise, any weight-bearing exercise is helpful. And I'm not talking about you going to the gym and pumping out reps of bench press and squats. I'm talking about things that can be just as simple as walking, right? Our bodies can be used to help us with weight-bearing exercise. Walking, jogging, stair climbing, swimming, all those kind of things would count as weight-bearing exercise. In addition to exercise, you have things such as getting the appropriate amount of calcium. We have to have, you guys know that, you have to have calcium to have proper bone health, right? But you also have to have the appropriate amount of vitamin D so that your body can absorb that calcium. And let me just give you the numbers right now. In people who are less than 50, you need roughly 1,000 milligrams of calcium per day. You've got to do that in 2 doses, so you could do a calcium supplement, you know, twice a day. And in vitamin D, you got to have at least 800 milligrams a day, though most people can do up to 2,000 or 4,000 units of vitamin D daily. As you get older than 50 years old, though, especially in women, you need closer to 1,200 milligrams a day, so you have to bump that up a little bit even more. In addition to exercise, calcium and vitamin D, believe it or not, you got avoiding excessive amounts of alcohol. More than 2 drinks of alcohol per day, and I'm not really sure they understand the mechanism, can actually contribute to weakening of the bones.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, interesting, huh?
And I guess if you drink enough drinks, it can really cause I'm not saying it tongue in cheek, you can fall and hurt yourself and that sort of thing too.
Then you got issues of falls, that's exactly right.
What are some of the option programs that are available, the treatment programs?
Yeah. Well, there's the major category of medications to treat osteoporosis are a family of medicines called bisphosphonates. You guys have probably seen commercials for these. Fosamax is probably the most used one. It's a generic name, alendronate. Then you got Actonel and Beniva. Those are once monthly medicines. Those are by far the most common medications. The most important thing to remember with those, if you're on one of those, is to take that medicine in the morning on an empty stomach. The number 1 side effect of those medicines is actually a heartburn type condition. It can kind of hurt your esophagus. So when you take those medications in the morning, you take them on an empty stomach, you make sure not to go and lie back down. You can just prevent all those complications. Beyond that, and I forgot to mention this earlier, another risk factor for osteoporosis are postmenopausal women. When a woman goes through menopause and is no longer making that estrogen, that's a major risk factor for osteoporosis. And so another very common treatment is estrogen or hormone replacement therapy. There's some issues that go along with estrogen, so there are some other medications that kind of mimic what estrogen does without being as risky, but then there are even treatment options beyond that.
Not having a medical background as you guys do in researching and knowing about medications that are on the market for particular treatments or particular diseases and illnesses, I guess you have to be careful though about you know, there's so many medications out there, and you know, I guess you can mix some of these things and cause some problems too.
Oh, you can, yeah. There are drug interactions with all kinds of different medicines, and honestly, that's something that you can't know. Truthfully, with a Google search, you're going to get a lot of bad information, and so you have to have the pharmacist and your physician to help you make sense out of those things. But also to that point, every medication has risk, right? We've talked about this on this show before. Medications change the way that your body works. If they didn't change the way your body worked, they wouldn't be beneficial for you. And because they change the way that your body works, they inherently have risk. And so with every medication that you take, here's the benefit, here's the risk. And if the benefit outweighs the risk, then it becomes something that you need to do. So it's a great question in regard to taking estrogen. Estrogen has some risk to it, but do the risks that estrogen have outweigh the decrease in your bone mineral density that you get without it? Something you got to discuss with your physician.
You see these TV commercials, and they're really 2-minute infomercials, 60-minute or 60-second infomercials, 2-minute infomercials that talk about a product, and then they spend the last 60 seconds talking about the side effects of it. And that's why I brought that up this morning,
sure.
Because the older you get, the more confused you can get on what's being said and what's being offered.
Isn't it interesting at the end of those commercials, that's in super fine print down there at the bottom, and they run through the risk of the medication as fast as they possibly can. I guess they have to do that by law, but I guess they want to do it so fast in the hopes that you don't hear it.
So that's why they need to talk to their pharmacist. You know, they really need to do that.
It makes it extremely complicated, and honestly, we have a lot of patients who hear those commercials or read the side effects of a medication potentially on the internet and decide they're not going to take the medicine when in fact that's a terrible decision.
Yeah. Jared Johnson from Marble City Pharmacy. He is our guest this morning on Health Monday, and certainly want to remind people that it is a holiday season and the gift shop is raring to go over there.
Gift shops raring to go. Beth and now Rachel, by the way, hired a new person in the gift department. Rachel, she's fantastic. She's working alongside Beth. Things are decorated for Christmas because we had open house last weekend, so we're ready to roll.
All right. Appreciate you coming by this morning.
Yeah, thank you.
We got more Daybreak just ahead as we continue right after this.